just saying, hey, here's a feed of content you can use is not helpful to a business, right? Because then they have to sit there and figure out which articles are good or bad.
Welcome to UpTech Report. This is our Applied Tech series. UpTech Report is sponsored by TerraLeap. Learn how to leverage the power of video at terraleap.io. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by my guest, Ralph Pahlmeyer, whose company's based in New York. He's over in California, but he's the CEO of Vestorly, which I'm excited to dig into today. Vestorly is all around focusing on helping organizations increase engagement, generate leads, and scale communication by using AI to surface and curate that content. So welcome, Ralph. Good to have you on, man.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Now, as this company, your website, you said curating content for whatever way you want to use that content. Help me understand, what was the problem that you initially set out to solve and are really focused on?
Yeah, so we started out as a marketing automation platform and have moved into an API-focused business. I'm a business focused on going direct to channel relationships and enterprise. But again, like I said, we started out as a marketing automation platform, and the original market that we were going after was the financial services market, and more specifically, financial advisors in the wealth management industry. And we realized that they faced a growing problem in that most were doing zero marketing. Why? Because they didn't have any content. So there were all these solutions. So we started the company back in 2013. And at the time, of course, there was marketing automation was a big thing. People had heard of Constant Contact. MailChimp was pretty new. But someone like a financial advisor or any sort of professional service provider, basically, a small business, they would sign up for those types of solutions, but ultimately they would fizzle out. I mean, because they didn't have anything to say, didn't have any content. Of course, there's exceptions to the rule. Some financial advisors, you see them on CNBC, they're talking heads, but for the most part, there were hundreds of thousands of these financial advisors and certainly millions of other professional service providers that really didn't do any marketing because they didn't have any content. So that was the original problem that we set out to solve, is provide them with a marketing system that they could actually use.
So the industry specific application for them that what they need, and being able to provide that content for them, that automation.
Right. So the original idea was a industry specific marketing automation solution, right? And of course, there were other differentiation points that the financial services industry needed with a market automation solution, namely around compliance and that type of thing. But ultimately, the focus was really on content, providing them with content in really easy to use tools that was automated and intelligent.
From there, how's it now developed, and kind of your direction of the use cases now in the API world?
So we expanded that business. So we started out as a fledgling tech company, and we went through the classic route to raise capital: angel round, seed round, Series A, and we grew the business quite rapidly. And what we found that is our key differentiation point, and what we really spent a lot of time on was our content engine. And there were so many other features that we needed to build that we didn't want to build because it was duplicative to what was out there in the marketplace. We wanted to focus on what our core offering was, what we were really good at, what we had spent years and years on, getting to patent and that type of thing. And that was our content engine. So we decided to move into a space where we focus directly on licensing our content engine to other market automation platforms.
Can you dig in a little bit more into the content engine of how it works and the tech stack behind it?
So it starts by aggregating content. So we aggregate content from all over the web, pulling in publicly available news sites, blogs, science journals, industry publications, and that type of thing. We aggregate all that content, and then we'd run it through our system where we would read the full text, the full HTML of all that content. Extracting images, taking the metadata, but most importantly, reading the full text of it to figure out what it was about. And so we call that our content engine, where we're pulling in all this content, reading it, figuring out what it's about. And then we provide a set of tools where you can go and create a feed of content on any topic, whatever wherever your imagination goes, you can create a feed of content. And you can think about that as like a Pandora radio or a Spotify,
Hmm.
but instead of music, it's for news, articles, and other information online. So say, for example, you're interested in Bitcoin, right? You can create a feed of content on Bitcoin. And our system takes in all the best sources. And because we capture so much data on content interactions, we're able to identify the pieces of content that are most valuable and ultimately are able to sort a massive pool of content by what's most likely to be engaging.
Hmm. There's the growing trend of well, a growing trend of there's so much content out there that
Mhm.
the key now is curation of knowing, okay, what is the right content for the right viewer at the
Right,
right time, especially when it
right.
comes in. There are other platforms that allow for aggregation, but it sounds like one of the differentiators here is you're taking care of already looking at everywhere. You don't have to say, all right, you have to go out and find all the places. All right, I want you to pay attention to here and here and here. You're
Yeah,
already looking at all of them. Is that
yeah. And
correct?
so one of the big things that we do is we take in this wide array of content, but what we do is we don't just say, here's a fire hose of content. We'll actually, select what is going to be most valuable. So, and we do that through a set of filters, what we call classifiers, wherein we can basically learn what content's going to be most engaging, what sources are going to be most engaging, right? So oftentimes you'll find the same article in the Wall Street Journal as the New York Times, as your local newspaper, right? They'll write about the same type of thing. You don't want to show that same article about the same exact thing 3 different times. So we'll automatically select what article is going to be most engaging, and then we can do a variety of interesting filtration methods, such as removing competitors, reading sentiment. So, for example, we can actually find out what content is positive or negative in tone, what content is more or less evergreen, you can provide a list of what your competitors are so that no content will ever mention a competitor. We can also figure out what content is going to be compliant or not compliant, safe. We provide filters on detecting political sentiment, violence, hate speech. So we can automatically remove all of that content because we score every article based on the probability that it fits with a certain paradigm of classification. The end result is a hyper curated feed of content that's business ready, so that the business can literally set up Vestorly and then automatically get a feed of content that's going to be content that's high enough of a high quality to just trust it and automatically schedule it out on social media, or automatically put it into client newsletters, or automatically display it on their website.
Hmm. This the power of being able to quickly cut down the noise to exactly what you want. And in this case, okay, we're looking at a business use case, right? So most of the platforms and tech that we interview is in the B2B space. And I'm imagining here as a business leader, if I want to help automate the content that's going out to capture my audience's interest, how can I do that most efficiently and make sure it's the right thing, not my competitors? That's why I find fascinating. You said you can actually filter out all those different things you may
Yeah.
not want. That's not, there's other solutions out there, but I haven't really heard that way of being able to fine tune in so many pieces.
Yeah, because what we found is that just saying, hey, here's a feed of content you can use is not helpful to a business, right? Because then they have to sit there and figure out which articles are good or bad. So with
Hmm.
Vestorly, you can set up this feed of content, right? Vestorly is going to figure out what articles are good or bad, but you can also get in there and train the feed. So think about on your Pandora radio where you can thumb up and thumb down songs. You can do the exact same thing with Vestorly. But what's more important is that when that content is actually being used, meaning when it's actually on a website or in the public domain or in your email newsletters or on social media, Vestorly is tracking every single interaction with the content. And we're fingerprinting that activity. So that way, we are learning actually, what actually is being engaged with, what's actually working or not working. And then ultimately what you're able to do is then you can then go and say, look, okay, here's my pool of content, right? I like these sources, I like these topics. I want to make sure content doesn't ever mention these types of things. And then ultimately Vestorly can say, okay, here's the perfect feed of content for Bob versus Susan versus Fred. And that way we take it the step to allow for personalization, right? So not only are we actually curating the content, but we can then go and personalize it based on who the person is, or based on where the content is being consumed.
And this is the end viewer, not the business that's using your API, but the end person who's actually consuming it from that organization.
Right. So if the business goes and connects Vestorly to their email service provider, Vestorly will then be able to go and dynamically return different content to different recipients.
Interesting. Can you share any use cases or case studies of or
Yeah.
companies that they're okay for you sharing their name?
Yeah, sure. So we work with a company called Bank of New York Mellon. They're a big, multinational bank. They have an arm called Pershing where they custody hundreds of billions of dollars in assets. And they use Vestorly to automate what content is going to what client. So they have clients across a number of divisions. They have content across a number of divisions. And what they were doing before Vestorly is they were sending out dozens of separate not news, but dozens of separate email communications, right? Based on what those clients, the type of business that they conduct at the firm. This obviously had dozens and dozens of different people at Bank of New York Mellon figuring out what content, building those emails, sending those emails. And that was obviously very time consuming. They had issues with clients either missing information or clients complaining about getting too much information. So really, they were, and also they were obviously having to pay for multiple divisions of labor to go and do this. So they started using Vestorly. We aggregated all of their content. We read all of their preferences from their CRM and what basically what these clients were doing, what business they were conducting with the firm. And then we basically consolidated 12 different email campaigns into one, where we basically dynamically are generating different content to different recipients. So not only have we saved a ton of time, but we also help them increase their engagement by 3x. So we increased their click-through rates by 3x. So customers were suddenly able to get just the content that was relevant to them and not be blasted with 5 or 6 different emails.
Taking a step back here for a moment, looking at the whole space of content marketing, and the relation to how technology is changing the way we interact with content. Let's just look social media in general, like Facebook. How is AI used to curate right now, and how do you see that changing?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah. So tell me, understand, like for social media, Facebook, for instance, just let's take the root case of how is AI being used to curate, and that relationship between people interaction with that AI to help curate content. I just want to kind of like set a base concept of around that for a moment.
Yeah. So we capture the activity around content. So any content that we provide to a business to share, we track those all that activity, so we can basically figure out who's clicking on it, and we fingerprint that activity based on what their email address is or based on some sort of unique identifier, and also because we know what every piece of content is about, we're able to build an interest profile on every single interaction. So we track everything that you've read. Maybe you've received 10 emails, you've clicked on 15, 16 pieces of content in those emails. We then have a pretty solid interest profile as to what you're interested in, what you've been doing. And then we're then able to take that data set and compare that to the pool of content. And that way we can then match up what you're going to be interested in based on that pool of content. right? So we can do it. There's two ways we do it. We can do it based on tags, right? Which really isn't true personalization. It's based on, okay, what are your CRM preferences and how does that match up with the content, right? That's one way we can do it. We can do that. That's not very unique, and frankly, not really that valuable. The what we're really known for, though, is actually doing it dynamically, where we ignore all that and rather take what actually you are clicking on and what you're actually doing, and we're then able to compare that to the pool of content to dynamically sort each pool of content based on whether or not you will interact with it. So the end result is more engagement, less hassle, and significantly a significant amount of time being saved. So, like I said, really it starts by when someone comes on Vestorly, we basically collect that pool of content. So we say, okay, where's the content coming from? So we take their own content, so everything that's in their content management system, everything that their own teams have been creating. We can take additional third-party content. We can take licensed content, and then we put all that content together, filter it, and establish a pool of content that here's what we want to be, here's the pool of available content that we want to make available for this specific email campaign or for this specific social media campaign or website campaign, right? And then Vestorly is then installed into the email template. It's installed on web pages, client portals, wherever the content's going to appear. And as those people go to open the email or go to the client portal, Vestorly will be there to dynamically render different content to different individuals. So that's kind of the overall flow of how it works.
Your space, are you still heavily focused then on financial space, or is it also applicable to other sectors?
So we have most of our customers are in financial services. We're not a financial technology company. Often we get labeled as that because we sell to financial service people, but we're a marketing technology company. So we've moved into other verticals. We now work with food service providers, and we're also working with other marketing automation companies. So the way in which our technology has been getting deployed recently is it's being white labeled by other marketing automation companies. So there's a lot of
feeding it into their own platform of that their customers can do the same thing.
Yeah. So think about like like another marketing automation system, like Salesforce Marketing Cloud, for example, right? Vestorly is integrated into Salesforce Marketing Cloud and can be added on to a Salesforce Marketing Cloud instance. And so customers are then leveraging Vestorly through another marketing automation solution. So that's kind of, we're in app stores like that, but we're also going direct to marketing automation solutions. So for example, another customer use case is a company called FMG Suite. They're a marketing automation provider that's focused on financial service industry people. And they've fully white labeled Vestorly technology. So the end result in that is that Vestorly is being used to recommend content that their users go and share out within their own solution.
Gotcha. Taking a step back here, just looking at the world of content marketing, and you've been in the space for a long time, 8 years of content itself. How do you see it changing as we go forward? Even consumer behaviors of how people want to interact with, and we label it content. Like, what is content, and how is that going to change going forward?
Well, what we've noticed and what I've seen is that companies are now much more willing to share third-party content with their clients and prospects now more than ever. We've been in the space for a while, and initially, we had a lot of pushback, right? They're like, oh, I would never share an article. Like, what if there's an ad of one of my competitors in there or something like that? Or what if something is written in that article that we don't like, right? But it seems that due to the fact is people being inundated with content, solutions around kind of targeting and finding the right content for the right people are, really valuable right now.
It's the name of the game.
And I think the pandemic has only caused that to increase. Is companies are desperate for better ways to digitally engage their audience, better ways to stay top of mind. And oftentimes these companies are finding that they don't have enough content. Like even huge, Fortune 500 companies that have teams of people doing nothing but create content are finding that they don't have enough content. But the quality of that content is paramount, and that's really where Vestorly fits in, and that's really where we're seeing a lot of traction. And I think the marketing ecosystem is evolving to be open to utilizing third-party content to engage their audience, and we're right in that sweet spot right now. So it's been really exciting. Go ahead.
I was saying it's interesting. You point out the trend though of the growing need for content at the same time, but still good content, and it's hard to keep up because the noise is there. So it's just like, how do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of companies now, and there's even if you go and look at companies like Gartner or Forrester that produce these market research reports. They've actually created a whole new sector now called content curation, right? And it's a very nascent space, but it's really interesting because it's a hodgepodge of all sorts of companies, including Vestorly, in this space. And usually, the space is currently, mainly, large companies like Adobe or big content management solution systems, and not necessarily smaller companies like Vestorly. But what we're doing is just so much more unique. The fact that we're actually a content discovery and curation tool, and not just a way to actually curate your own content, but we're bringing in content from the outside and infusing that with what these companies already have to provide a whole new layer of data and provide a whole new way to actually better engage their clients and prospects. I mean, our data shows that people are 3 to 5 times more likely to click on a third-party article than they are the company's own articles or blog posts and that type of thing.
Why is that? Why is that?
Well, because if the company's mentioned in the Wall Street Journal, people are much more likely to click on that Wall Street Journal article than they are
their own blog,
their own blog post or whatever. Or if they have a
third-party validation, is that what it is? Third-party validation.
Exactly, and they've got a product that is written up in Consumer Reports, or a product that's reviewed, right? Vestorly can find that data and couple it with the company's own collateral, and dramatically boost the engagement with that, and ultimately lead to much more revenue. So think that a company is producing a toothbrush, and the toothbrush is written about and highly rated and reviewed. Vestorly can extract those articles that are talking about this. I mean, I just made this up, toothbrush, but you know what I mean. Yeah. We actually can find those articles that are going to lead to much more engagement, that can then be paired with the company's own ad or marketing collateral about their product.
Ralph, I just want to ask you a bit more about you. I mean, like what got you excited about this whole space and saying, I'm gonna invest my focus and energy in this?
So I mean, I think it goes back to just noticing that there was a huge need in I was being completely left unfilled. We got started with some of the original ideas back in 2012 on the company, and it's just been an interesting journey. And what I found to be most exciting is just building something, right, and creating something that's new. Honestly, it wasn't so much just an interest in marketing, right? My background was never in marketing.
Your background is like more banking side, is that correct?
Yeah, I came from I got a job at JP Morgan at the college, and did that for a few years, and grew disenchanted. But one of the things I had learned about is that Well, I got started around the kind of what was called the breakaway broker movement, not to get too sidetracked on this, but
Yeah.
ultimately it led me to realize how big of a industry the independent financial advisor space was. And again, as I mentioned at the top of the call, that that was our first target. Is we were trying to help them do marketing, and there literally wasn't any solution out there that was helpful to them. Right? There were solutions that were out there that would say, okay, here's your, great job on your marketing. Your website was clicked 1,000 times. I mean, that doesn't mean anything to someone like a financial advisor or a yoga teacher or an insurance broker or a real estate agent, right? Finding out that their website was clicked on adds no value, right? But those were the tools that are available back then.
Mhm.
So the industry's come a long way, but ultimately what really excited me the most is just building something unique, building breakthrough technology, and and growing a company. And we really set out to build a technology company. And the only way to build a technology company is to hire the smartest engineers and people that you can find and get them out there to solve hard problems. And that's kind of been our DNA.
As a leader, we're always learning, we're always growing, always having to innovate, and it's only from those learning we can make that happen. If you were to go back to yourself like 8 years ago and share anything with yourself, what would that be?
Um, yeah, I've been someone who's had to really work hard on leadership skills. Uh, I think when I started out, I was someone who oftentimes would avoid conflict, and that, I mean, it just that's been something that I've worked really hard on over the last 5 years to to um to guess just to be better about taking on the conflicts that I need to take on rather than just brushing things under the rug. And so so I think that going back, I probably would have try to stand up for a lot more of the conviction that I had back then, and ultimately listen to more people, right? I think as an entrepreneur, you read about other entrepreneurs and how bullheaded they are, and how like Steve Jobs did it, and then you think that, oh well, Steve Jobs did it this way, I need to do it this way. But like, look, not everyone is Steve Jobs, and not everyone can get lucky too, right? So really just listening to the customer, listening to the team, and being open to changing your course, right? Being open to that criticism, being open to admitting that you're wrong,
Mhm.
and really go where with what the data tells you. I mean, ignoring data is 99% of the time, ignoring data is going to lead to a bad outcome.
Is that it's okay, easy on the 2020 hindsight, but you have to be able to make those decisions in that moment, listen for that insight, be open to the insight, and pay attention to it
Exactly.
to be able to keep growing. I appreciate that, honestly, because if anything, business is a journey, and it's not a suddenly you're there, but it's that growth and that mindset. And speaking of then looking forward from here, uh, what kind of tech predictions would you make in this space, looking ahead near term, next year or two, and long term, 5, 10 years? What can we expect?
So certainly, I think that more and more, I think this trend is going to continue, of companies being open to leveraging third-party content with their own marketing campaigns. It's a really interesting trend. It actually caught me by surprise as to how much interest would grow since the pandemic. And I oftentimes I have conversations where people are like, "Oh, wow, I didn't know a solution like this would exist." And hearing that is obviously, I mean, music to my ears. Those are the type of conversations that I want to have. So I certainly think that this content curation space, it's
Mhm.
nascent, but it's going to continue to grow, and Vestorly is extremely well positioned to take it on. And the other big trend that I think is a lot more obvious is personalization, right?
Mm.
When people think of personalization, they think of getting some sort of spammy ad on LinkedIn or Instagram, right? Or getting retargeted, and people often, there's a lot of ways that companies are retargeting. We won't get into the weeds there, but what to personalization is much more deep. than that. Actually having very few companies are actually doing personalization in their emails, right? When the companies that are doing personalization now are tend to be e-commerce companies. But what Vestorlys help doing is personalizing just general communications, personalizing just your general email and leveraging machine learning and natural language processing to do that. So what are the actual pieces of content that we want to be sending out, and better targeting those to your email recipient list. Very few companies are actually doing that. They say that they're doing that, but they're doing it based on, okay, this person's a client, this person's a prospect, this person lives in Asia, this person lives in the US. And like I said, that's tag-based personalization. That's not true personalization, right? But who's to say that I wouldn't be interested in something that you're sending out to your Asian clients, right? I'm in the US, I might be interested in some sort of some product that you're offering to your Asian clients, right? Vestorly can find that. Vestorly can connect the dots there, and it's really exciting. We're continuing to improve our technology. We're about to push out a release that we think is going to lead to another order of magnitude improvement on targeting and engagement. So I think that, like I said, this is a really nascent space. But there's just a lot of interest, a lot of room to grow, and we're really excited about the future.
Anything you can share on that order of magnitudes about that new launch, or is it still kind of hush hush right now until it goes live?
Well, I mean, the data is very preliminary. I mean, what we see today is oftentimes a 2 to 3x increase in engagement, but we're looking to double that. Wow.
So lots of room for growth still, and the room for content curation and being able to find it. Well, I appreciate being able to hear this journey of both that you've been on, where you started, but where you guys are at the moment, and the power for platforms or folks that want to be able to use it as an API focuses right now. So for your ideal folks that would use your platform, can you describe them just again briefly? So if those are listeners out there, they would say, oh, that's me.
So what we're selling to other technology companies primarily right now. So the companies that we're looking to sell to are companies that provide various marketing services to their clients. So companies so any sort of email service provider is a good fit. Any sort of social media automation company is a good fit. Any sort of website marketing company is a good fit. Those are companies that we're looking to sell to. As far as on the enterprise side, right? So that's the channel side. As far as the enterprise side, any company that has multiple email lists and multiple email campaigns that are going out and are sort of decentralized, Vestorly can take all of those, combine them, and increase your engagement. So I'll leave
it's helpful to
hear,
the two sides, both the channel partners, if those are out there, there are software tech companies that have this option. You're like, wow, we can only do so much. So we're getting to a world which I think is fascinating, where tech is built upon tech, and it only makes more sense. We're this new industrialization that we can rely on other tech platforms to grow our own offerings. But then also to know for enterprise options where you just have so much going on that you need this type of technology platform. It doesn't make sense for you to have to manually.
A more simple way to put it is if you have customers or clients that don't have enough content or the right content, Vestorly could be a good fit, right? That's really a more simple way to put it.
I like it. Well, for those that do want to learn more, you can go to vestorly.com. That's VESTORLY.com. And looks like you can get a demo there and be able to learn more. For this full episode, definitely go back to uptechreport.com. See that content and more interviews there. Thank you again, Ralph, for spending your time with us. It was great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys on the next episode of UpTech Report. Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.